What is up, my fellow Ojamans? It's CryptJ1958 coming back at you with another deck profile. We actually just had our regional here in Sandy, Utah just a little bit ago, yesterday, and took this deck to there. Ended up going 3 and 4, sadly. Part of it was just misplays, and other parts were just I ran into a few people who actually knew how to play against this deck, and then just bad draws. I'm going to show you the deck profile. I have a lot of fun with it. Really cheap deck too. Let's just get into it. We'll kind of go over what I played and how the deck works. So starting out, we're running 3 Megalo Smasher, level 4 water, 2000 attack. Some decks actually have a really hard time getting over this guy. It's kind of sad, really. And then the first card in the archetype is Phantasm Spiral Dragon, level 8, 2900 meter, really easy to get out. You can special summon this from just about anywhere. So that's actually our entire monster count. So we are playing Phantasm Spirals, so of course we're going to be running 3 of the Pacifist. That is our field spell. The way it works is anytime your opponent activates a card or effect while you do not have a token on the field, it special summons a 2000 level 8 water worm token. And then during either player's turn, if you normal or special summon a normal monster, you can search a Phantasm Spiral card from your deck, and that's the first time you normal or special summon. One of the ways this card works is it says if your opponent activates a card or effect, then you can special summon the token. So what a lot of people don't realize is, like, if they use something like Regeki to get rid of your token, this does not chain to what they activate. It actually activates in its own separate chain after the resolution of whatever they activated. So if they use Regeki and it gets rid of your token, after Regeki resolves, that's when Pacifist activates, and you will actually get another token. Just because it's not a quick effect, so it does not chain to the actual activation. And that's where a lot of people kind of have a hard time playing against this deck, just because if they're trying to set up like an OTK or something and they use an effect to get rid of your token, you get another token and that triggers a search, so you're actually able to get out your utility cards pretty easily. We are running 2 more Phantasm Spiral spell cards. We are using 2 equipped cards. We're using my favorite, which is Phantasm Spiral Crash. Gives your normal monster piercing, and then if you do any battle damage with the monster equipped to this card, you actually get to special summon this guy straight from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So it doesn't matter where this guy is, you're bringing him out. And then this will actually re-equipped to your Phantasm Spiral Dragon, giving him piercing. So I actually OTK'd through a board of just incantations yesterday during one of my games, because I was able to get that off with a Megalo Smasher and the Phantasm Spiral Dragon. The other one is a little bit more situational. It's Phantasm Spiral Grip. Gives your monster 500 attack, and then you have to beat over a monster with that is equipped to this card in order to special summon the Phantasm Spiral Dragon. So it's not as useful as the other one, but I have actually had this come up quite a bit, and there are ways of getting that equipped, even during like battle phase. I'll kind of go over that when we get into our traps. So I've actually had this help me get over problematic cards just because of how it works, and that is the spell lineup for Phantasm Spirals. Now we're getting into our other spells. So because we're running such a low monster count, we're actually going to be running 3 Card of Demise. And out of pretty much the whole deck, other than a few cards in the extra deck, this is the most expensive card. When I got it, it was about $8 a copy. It goes up and down, but you know, everything else is like $2 or less. So really budget deck. We're also going to be running 3 Duality, because a lot of times we need our opponent to do something so we can special summon. So we're going to be special summoning on their turn more often than not. So duality just works well. My favorite card in this deck is Heatwave. What this does is it makes it so you play it at the start of your main phase 1. Neither you or your opponent can normal or special summon effect monsters until your next draw phase. So, I mean, that basically shuts down every meta deck right now. If you win the die roll, you open with that card, you have a turn to set up. All they can do is set and pass. You will notice that it is a speed duel card. The original printing of this card did get printed back in like 2002. It was a really long time ago and it was only printed once. But in normal Yu-Gi-Oh, you are allowed to use speed duel cards. You just can't use normal Yu-Gi-Oh cards in speed duel. In case anybody was wondering about that. But then the last 2 spell cards are just a couple one-ofs. Terraforming to help get us into Pacifist, and Upstart Goblin just for the extra draw. That rounds up our spells. Let's get into our traps here. This is kind of where the deck shines a little bit. So we're running 3 Phantasm Spiral Battle. All of the Phantasm Spiral traps have the same kind of condition. You have to have only normal monsters on the field. So the tokens count as normal monsters. Then the Megalo Smasher, the Phantasm Spiral Dragon, and there's a couple other things in here that count as normal monsters. I do have an extra deck, but a lot of the stuff in there is non-effect, but does not count as a normal monster. So if you have those out, you're not able to actually activate these cards at all. So you just got to be careful with that. But another thing is Pacifist actually counts as Umi all the time. And these cards say if you have Umi on the field and a normal monster, you can actually play them from your hand. And you don't have to have them there for like a turn. You can add them to your hand and then play them almost immediately. So this one specifically has 2 effects. The first one is the most important one, and then the other one actually can help you push for game if you do it right. The first effect, the one that you're going to be using most often, is it actually pops 1 card on the field. You can just choose 1 card. It doesn't specify monsters, spells, or traps, or anything. It's just 1 card on the field, and you can destroy that card. Its secondary effect is if you have Yumi on the field, you can banish it from your graveyard, target 1 monster you control, and all equipped cards that you have on the field will equip to that monster. So that's kind of what I was saying. I've actually used that. So I had the Phantasm Spiral Dragon out, and he was equipped with the Grip, which gives him the extra 500. And then I actually banished, oops, lighting is kind of weird. I banished Battle from the field, re-equipped this to my Megalo Smasher, and I was actually able to beat over the card that they were attacking Megalo Smasher with, just because I was able to do that. The next Phantasm Spiral card is a lot more fun if you use it right, in my opinion, but it's not necessarily as useful as Battle, and that is Phantasm Spiral Power. So what this one does is, again, you have Yumi on the field and a normal monster. You can activate it from the hand, and if all you control is normal monsters, you can activate it. Either way, you just have to set it if no Umi. But what this one does is you target a effect monster, and it loses its effect, negates its effect till the end of the turn, and it loses 1,000 attack. So again, what I like to do is after an attack has been declared, you play that on the monster attacking your monster or your token or whatever, and you lower them down. Since the number of monsters on the field has not changed, they don't get a redeclare, and basically they lose their monster. And if you've already popped a bunch of their combo pieces and made it so they were only able to get out like 1 decent attack monster trying to get some damage in, and then you do that and get rid of the 1 monster they have, it's kind of satisfying. And then this one, its secondary effect is you can banish it from the graveyard, again with the same restriction. You must have Umi on the field and only normal monsters, and you can actually equip an equipped card, a Phantasm Spiral equipped card, from your hand or graveyard. And so a lot of times I won't set my equipped cards. Like if the only card I have left in my hand are Card of Demise and the equipped card, and I only have like 2 slots on the field, a lot of times what I'll do is I will just play Card of Demise, draw the 2 cards, and then usually, because most of the deck is traps, I'll get traps I need, set the 2 traps in the 2 spots I have open, and then let my equipped card go to the graveyard, because I do have ways of getting it back with this card. So it's not too terrible if you end up discarding it. And again, you can do that during the battle phase after the attack has been declared. So you just banish it, equip the equipped card, and then you basically get the effect from it. So those work really well. The next card that works really well in this deck, that isn't archetype specific but probably could be, is Sea Stealth Attack. Now this has a few different effects, and there is a ruling that you kind of have to understand. So the first effect is when it's flipped face up, you can activate Umi from your hand or graveyard, and that's the only thing you can activate when it's flipped face up. So if something happens and you end up having all of your Umis discarded, and you draw that, you set it, you flip it, you get your Phantasm or your Pacifist activated since it's treated as Umi. The other 2 effects you can use after it's been flipped face up for a little bit. So it has 2 as an activated effect and a passive effect. Now the activated effect is the easiest and probably the one that will come up more often than not, and that is once per turn you can banish a water monster till the end phase, and it makes it so your face-up spells and traps cannot be destroyed that turn. So usually what you'll do is your opponent activates, Twin Twisters, you chain, Sea Stealth Attack, banish your token, it protects your face-up spells and traps, so your Pacifist won't get destroyed. After Twin Twisters resolves, you don't have a token, Pacifist activates, giving you a token and a search. So you basically went +1, your opponent went -2. Just off of that interaction. That's usually what you're going to use that for, or sometimes I would actually use it to bait my opponent into attacking my token, because of the passive effect. So I'll banish my Megalo Smasher for the turn, and then they'll only have 1 monster to attack. The passive effect on this card is if a level 5 or higher water monster battles an opponent's monster, whether it attacks or your opponent attacks, at the start of the damage step, that monster is destroyed. So it doesn't actually battle, it just destroys it. And it's not an activated effect. It's very similar to how Salmon Great Balinx works, where it doesn't actually activate it, so you can't really negate it. It's just a passive effect. So with the token from Pacifist being a level 8 water worm, and then our Phantasm Spiral Dragon being level 8 as well, anything they battle will just be destroyed at the start of the damage step. So that's good and bad. It gets rid of tough monsters that you can't really get rid of since it's non-targeting destruction. It can get over things you can't target, but it also destroys it before damage calculation, so you're not doing any damage. So that's kind of the main downfall from it. But other than that, it has a lot of utility. So the other I have a couple other cards that do really well, and they synergize pretty well with Pacifist and the rest of the archetype. So I'm running 2 Paleozoic Canadia and 2 Olenoids. So what these do is Canadia flips a monster face down in defense position, and then Olenoids will pop any spell or trap on the field. That usually is on your opponent's turn, or on your opponent's side, but you can use it for yours as well, because some of your floodgates can kind of stop you. So being able to pop those and go for the OTK is pretty nice. But for those who don't know how Paleozoics work, is if they're in the graveyard and a trap card is activated at all, you can actually special summon these as a 1200 0 defense level 2 aqua monster. But then if they do get destroyed, they are banished instead of going back to the graveyard. And again, this activates in its own separate chain. So you activate one of your spell cards, your opponent activates a spell card, whatever, it resolves, you can actually bring these back. And since they come out as a normal monster, they actually work with your Pacifist, and you get a search from those. My favorite by far is Canadia, just because your opponent brings out like their one combo starter, and you flip it face down before they can really get their combo going. They can't link off with face down monsters, so they're kind of stuck. The next few cards we have here are a couple floodgates. I'm also running 2. There can be only 1. So I really like this card just because it does stop quite a bit of the meta. I mean, the duel that was at the top table for the last round was Salamangreat versus Sky Striker Orcust. I mean, this basically stops both of those decks if you're able to get it off and keep it on the field. So, really good card. The only thing I don't like about it is if we have a token on the field, we can't bring out Phantasm Spiral Dragon since they're both worms. And if you have the ability to OTK, then, and you're not able to because of this card, that can kind of put you in a situation where your opponent can potentially come back. There are other ways of dealing with that, like before you actually do the OTK or activate the effect to bring out Phantasm Spiral Dragon, you could use Sea Stealth Attack to get rid of your token, but a lot of times the token is going to be what you attack with last to do your last little bit of damage, just because of how everything works with Sea Stealth Attack and everything. So it's kind of, you can do it, it's just kind of a pain. But that's where Olenoids comes in. You can actually pop this card if you need to. It's a decent floodgate. I like it at 2. I see it a lot of times when I need it. And then the last 2 of is one of my favorite cards. It's actually the Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi. So this is basically Solid Judgment. The only thing is you don't pay life points. You just have to have a non-effect monster on the field, and it negates a spell, trap, or monster effect. Works really well. Basically everything we can get on the field is a non-effect monster, so you're all good there. It's basically an Omni-Negate, and then it does have a Waking the Dragon effect, so if it gets popped, you can actually bring out a non-effect monster from your extra deck, which does come up sometimes, and I'll show you kind of what I have for that. And then I do have 1 Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment is really good just because it can stop normal summons, and that can also kind of halt your opponent. But I like the ratio. I tested with 3 Judgment, and in today's meta, it was just really hard to kind of come back from using more than 1 Judgment. So the 10U trap works really well. I tried 3 10U traps, but then being able to get rid of the 1 normal or flip summon every once in a while was just really nice. So I like this ratio. You could test, kind of test out your own. And then for the last 3 cards, so I'm running 1 Metaverse, again, just to get into Pacifist, because we want to see that. It's really hard to get the deck going if you don't have Pacifist. And then the last 2 cards are just more floodgates. So we're running Skill Drain and Macros Cosmos. Skill Drain, no brainer. Nothing on the field has an effect. So it's really hard for your opponent to actually make a play if they don't have monster effects, because everything is very monster effect heavy right now. And then Macros Cosmos, a lot of the decks, the top decks, are very graveyard centric, and with Macros Cosmos your opponent does not have a graveyard. There have actually been games where I've opened up, I won the die roll, I opened up both of these. I actually played 1 game yesterday. I opened up both, had them both set. I was playing against I believe it was a Thunder Dragon, and they normal summoned a Lupine, went to activate the effect, chained skill drain, asked if they had any response. Nope. Macros Cosmos, and they basically scooped because they couldn't do anything from there. So works really well. That is the deck. Let's jump into the side deck, and then I'll show you the extra deck, and then I'll show you what side deck I was running. So I have the tokens just for the Pacifist. So, like I showed you that 10-yi, the 10-yi counter trap. There we go. So that gets popped out, or gets popped while it's set. My favorite card to go for, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, 4500 beat stick, no effect, so it works. I have a few more cards that work pretty well. Traffic Ghost, small beater, not too great, but can still make it happen. And then 2 of the Gaia Saber, Lightning Shadow, another non-effect beater. Those are like desperation plays. Really, it's Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon or Berserker of the 10-yi, because they are the highest damage. And those are our 10-yi trap targets. The rest of what I have in here is kind of situational. Running Mega Fleet and Fortress, just because, you know, Cyber Dragon is still a thing, and I played against a Orcus Cyber Dragon player a couple weeks ago. He ended with IP Masquerena and Infinity. I drew and immediately went into Mega Fleet and just kind of wrecked his day. I was testing Waking the Dragon, and I had this in there from that. I don't have Waking the Dragon in there anymore, so I don't actually have any way of making this card. So you can switch that out for whatever you want. I just keep it in there because if anybody plays anything that lets them look at my extra deck and they see that, they're going to assume that I'm playing Waking the Dragon, and they're not going to pop my stuff. And then I have a couple rank 4s. So Utopia Lightning, and Gaga Cowboy, just because Megalo Smasher is level 4 and you can get multiple of them out on the field. So Cowboy for game is still fun, even in 2019. So that's the extra deck. Side deck is tailored a little bit to kind of my local meta. Running 3 Ash Blossom just to stop those searches. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. Being able to banish certain cards like Babel, or there are probably like 6 or 7 Mystic Mind players at that regional. Just being able to banish cards so they can't reoccur is pretty nice. Dimensional Fissure, just to give ourselves a little bit more banishing, stop our opponent from having a graveyard. 2 Summon Limit. I really like Summon Limit. You wait until your opponent has 2 summons on the field, flip that, they basically have to pass turn. Red Reboot, stop those trap decks. And then I actually had to borrow this card. This is the other card I was talking about that can be a little bit expensive. This is about $16 a copy right now as of the time of the recording. But I was also running 3 evenly, just because a lot of times you go second, you side evenly, you're able to, blow up your opponent's board, make it so you have everything set up. So in order for your opponent to rebuild, they have to activate card effects, and you're going to go off from there. So really losing one battle phase isn't the end of the world. Really, I really like evenly matched in this. This is the deck I played. It's a lot of fun, and once you learn kind of all the intricacies, it does pretty well. Like I said, there were a few misplays that I did. I probably could have done better had I thought about things a little bit more and activated things when they were supposed to. I know there was a few times where I forgot to activate Pacifist to get my token, and because I forgot that, I didn't get the surge like I could have, and I probably could have changed things. So just learning the deck and being a little bit better at it probably would have helped. It's a fun deck. Let me know what you guys think, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys later.